Hey everyone! Welcome to the Bold and Beautiful 24. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Bold and Beautiful, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. Bill Spencer had built his empire on power, control, and an unshakable ability to sniff out deception from miles away, but nothing in his ruthless history had prepared him for the storm that came crashing into his life when Luna Nozawa, a young woman he had tolerated more out of obligation to his son Will than genuine affection, suddenly revealed that she was pregnant, claiming the child belonged to Will. A revelation that detonated like a bomb in the Spencer family and forced Bill to confront his deepest fears as both a father and a man who had always prided himself on protecting his family from scandal. Yet behind all the shouting, all the accusations, all the slammed doors at Spencer Publications and the quiet sobbing at Katie's house where she worried endlessly about how fragile Will had become, Bill felt something gnawing at him in the shadows, something he couldn't shake. A whisper of doubt that said the truth was far more complicated than Luna's tearful claims, and that if he didn't dig deeper, he risked losing not only his son's trust but his own ability to control the chaos ripping through his world. So Bill began to investigate, quietly at first, calling in favors, using private investigators, pulling strings in ways that only Bill Spencer could, while Will sat in his room at night staring at the ceiling, wondering how he could possibly be a father when he hadn't even finished becoming a man, while Katie alternated between fury at Luna for entrapping her son and sorrow that Will's once carefree spirit seemed broken. But what none of them could fully grasp was that Luna herself was unraveling in private, her hands trembling as she pressed them against her stomach, whispering that this wasn't supposed to happen, that she hadn't planned for it to spiral this way, because behind the fragile doe-eyed exterior, Luna was carrying a secret so explosive it could shatter everything. And that secret was that Will Spencer was not the father of her baby, not even close, because the truth was darker, more twisted, and tied to an encounter that Luna had fought to bury, an encounter that was coming back to haunt her now that Bill had made it his mission to unearth every detail. The weeks dragged on, filled with confrontations where Bill demanded honesty, where he growled at Luna in his office, slamming his fists against his desk and telling her that if she dared to lie to him again, he would unleash hell. While Liam, always caught in the Spencer family orbit, warned his father that pressuring Luna too hard could backfire, though secretly Liam too had doubts about her story and wondered why she always seemed on edge whenever anyone mentioned paternity tests. And it was during one of those heated confrontations at Il Giardino, with Sheila lurking in the corner pretending to be absorbed in a conversation with Deacon but really eavesdropping on every word, that Bill finally saw it. Luna's eyes darting nervously, her body stiffening when he threatened a DNA test, a reaction too visceral to ignore, and in that instant Bill knew she was hiding something monumental. He pressed harder, hiring a discreet lab to run a test behind her back, slipping a strand of hair from her coat into an envelope like the ruthless tycoon he was, and when the results came back, Bill's blood ran cold because the markers didn't match Will at all, proving that his son was not the father. And though a part of him felt vindicated, another part roared with rage at the betrayal, at the thought of his son suffering needlessly when the truth could have spared him. And so Bill dug deeper, following every thread, interrogating every possible connection in Luna's life until finally, in a shocking twist, he uncovered the horrifying truth that the father of Luna's unborn child was none other than John Finn Finnegan, the man married to Steffi Forrester, the man Bill had once respected for his integrity, the man who was supposed to stand as a paragon of morality in a town riddled with betrayal, yet now stood revealed as someone who had crossed a line so destructive that Bill could barely process it. He remembered the night Finn and Luna had been spotted in close proximity at the Forrester office, an evening that had raised eyebrows but quickly been dismissed as innocent, yet the timeline now painted a very different story, and as Bill confronted the enormity of the revelation, fury surged in his chest because this wasn't just about Will anymore. This was about Steffi, about Liam, about the entire Forrester Spencer Finnegan web of entanglements being set ablaze, and Bill realized he held the match. The confrontation came in typical Bill Spencer fashion, dramatic and uncompromising, as he stormed into Finn's office at the hospital, DNA results in hand, his voice like thunder as he hurled the papers onto the desk and snarled that he knew the truth, that he knew Finn had gotten Luna pregnant and destroyed his son's life with lies. While Finn stammered, his face paling, his hands trembling as he tried to explain that it wasn't what Bill thought, that there had been circumstances, manipulation, things he couldn't quite articulate without unraveling himself. But Bill wasn't in the mood for excuses. He wanted blood, he wanted justice, he wanted Finn to admit the betrayal outright so he could take that confession straight to Steffi and watch her world explode. Because in Bill's mind, this was war, and nothing less than total Retribution would suffice. Meanwhile, Luna, realizing that Bill had uncovered the secret, broke down in a storm of sobs at the Forrester mansion where she confessed to Poppy that she couldn't keep lying, that everything was falling apart, and Poppy, torn between protecting her daughter and shielding herself from scandal, urged Luna to deny. But Luna knew the truth had claws now, and Bill Spencer was the kind of man who never stopped once he smelled blood, and so as the walls closed in. As Katie gasped in horror when Bill revealed the results, as Will sat broken-hearted learning he wasn't going to be a father after all, as Liam prepared to comfort Steffi knowing she was about to face betrayal of the highest order, the stage was set for a family implosion unlike any other in Los Angeles, and Bill, standing at the center of the storm, vowed to himself that he would burn every bridge necessary to protect his son, even if it meant tearing Finn's life to shreds, exposing Luna's darkest secret, and igniting a war with Steffi Forrester that would leave scars on every family involved, because Bill Spencer had finally discovered the identity of the man who got Luna pregnant, and nothing, no lies, no pleas, no carefully spun excuses, would stop him from detonating the truth in the most destructive, dramatic way possible, because in Bill's world, betrayal was unforgivable and revenge was the only language worth speaking. Bill Spencer had never been a man to hesitate once he had the truth in his hands, and as he stood staring down Finn in that sterile hospital office, the white walls suddenly seemed too bright, the hum of fluorescent lights like a buzzing taunt above his head, and though Finn begged for a moment to explain, Bill's fury was volcanic, his voice shaking the walls as he barked that there was no explanation for what he'd done, that Luna was a girl barely out of her own youth, that Will's life had been shattered because Finn couldn't control himself, and as Bill's fist slammed against the desk so hard a vase toppled and shattered on the linoleum, Finn's eyes filled with panic not only for his career but for Steffi, the woman he adored, the woman who would never forgive him if this truth reached her ears in the way Bill was threatening to unleash it. But Bill wasn't done, not even close, because the rage of a father who had watched his son's heart fracture under the weight of lies had no limit, and Bill stormed out of that office with one goal, to tell Steffi everything, to see her face when she learned the man she thought was her rock had betrayed her with a woman who had already wreaked havoc on her family. And when Bill arrived at the Cliff House that evening, Steffi was sipping wine on the patio, staring at the ocean with the calm of someone who had no idea her entire life was about to detonate, and when she turned to see Bill's stormy expression, she immediately bristled, asking what business he had barging in at such an hour, but Bill's voice cut like a blade through the salty air as he told her to sit down, that she needed to hear something before it hit the gossip columns, something so vile that even he could barely wrap his head around it, and as Steffi's heart raced, she demanded he stop speaking in riddles, so Bill threw the DNA results onto the table, the pages flapping in the wind, and with a roar that echoed off the cliffs, he told her that Finn was the father of Luna's baby, that he had betrayed not just her but their entire family, and for a long, heavy moment, Steffi simply froze, her eyes scanning the papers, her fingers trembling as she traced the names and markers, her breath caught in her throat like a vice, until finally her glass of wine slipped from her hand and shattered on the deck, and she staggered back against the railing, shaking her head in disbelief, whispering no over and over until the word became a broken mantra, and when Finn himself walked in moments later, his face ashen, sweat glistening on his temples, he knew the truth had already been unleashed, and Steffi's scream tore through the air as she hurled the papers at him, demanding to know if it was true, if he had betrayed her in the worst way imaginable, and though Finn tried to stammer explanations about manipulation, about mistakes, about things being more complicated than Bill painted them, Steffi's tears blurred her vision and her sobs shook her shoulders because she had survived so much, Sheila's chaos, Liam's waffling, endless family battles, but this betrayal cut deeper than anything before, because it was not just a man's mistake, it was the obliteration of trust, and in the chaos, Bill stood smirking bitterly, satisfied that the truth had detonated as he promised, even as Liam arrived at the house, drawn by Bill's urgent call, and walked into the fallout just as Steffi collapsed onto the couch, sobbing into her hands, while Finn fell to his knees begging her to understand, begging her not to end their marriage, and Liam, seeing Steffi's anguish, felt both fury and vindication as he told Finn that Steffi deserved better, that she had always deserved better, that this only proved he could never be trusted, while Bill growled that Finn had destroyed not just his own family but Will's innocence and Luna's entire future, and at that exact moment, Luna herself appeared at the doorway, having been dragged by Poppy who begged her daughter to come clean, to stop letting Bill control the narrative, and when Luna's wide eyes met Steffi's, when her lips trembled as she whispered that she hadn't meant for any of this to happen, that she never wanted to hurt anyone, Steffi's fury turned white-hot, and she lunged at Luna, demanding to know how she could dare step foot in her house after shattering her life, and the confrontation exploded into chaos as Finn tried to shield Luna, Bill tried to drag her out by the arm, Liam shouted that she needed to leave before Steffi lost control, and Poppy screamed at them all that they didn't know the whole story, that there were forces at play manipulating Luna just as much as Finn, and for a second the entire room froze as Sheila appeared. From the shadows, her voice eerily calm as she declared that she did know the whole story, that she had been watching this spiral from the beginning, and if anyone wanted the truth, they had to hear it from her, because this wasn't simply about infidelity, it was about control, manipulation, and a twisted web of lies that went deeper than any of them imagined, and as Steffi's sobs quieted, as Bill's eyes narrowed, as Finn's chest heaved, and as Luna's tears streamed down her cheeks, Sheila stepped into the light with the air of someone about to drop a revelation so seismic that it would shift the power dynamics of every family in Los Angeles, and Bill, though normally the one who controlled the narrative, suddenly found himself silenced, wondering if even his fury was about to be dwarfed by whatever hell Sheila Carter was preparing to unleash. Sheila Carter had always lived for moments like this, moments where every set of eyes in the room locked onto her, where truth and lies blurred together in the heat of her delivery, where the weight of revelation hung on her every syllable, and as she stepped forward in Steffi and Finn's cliff house with Bill, Liam, Poppy, Luna, and Steffi all standing in various states of rage and collapse, her lips curled into a smirk that carried both menace and satisfaction, because for once, she wasn't the one being cornered, she wasn't the one clawing her way out of accusations, instead, she was the gatekeeper of a truth that none of them were ready to hear, and she began with a chilling calmness, telling them that they had all been manipulated, that what Bill thought he uncovered was only half the story, because yes, Finn was tied to Luna's pregnancy, but not in the way Bill had framed it, and when Steffi, her face still streaked with tears, demanded to know what she meant, Sheila dropped the bombshell that Luna had not seduced Finn, nor had Finn consciously betrayed his vows. What had really happened was that Luna had been drugged, altered, her judgment hijacked, and that the person who orchestrated this accident was someone none of them wanted to believe capable, Lee Finnegan, Finn's own adoptive mother, who had spent months quietly seething about Luna's presence, whispering that she was a distraction, a liability, and a shame to the Finnegan name, and in Sheila's version of events, Lee had taken it upon herself to correct Luna's place in the world by orchestrating a situation that would humiliate her, ruin her reputation, and sever her connection to the Forresters and Spencers forever, but instead, it spiraled, and now here they were, with a baby on the way, a marriage on the brink, and Bill Spencer ready to tear the entire family tree limb by limb. The words landed like grenades, and the silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Poppy's horrified gasp, as she clutched Luna and demanded that Sheila stop lying, that this was another one of her twisted games, but deep down, Poppy's eyes betrayed doubt because she had sensed Lee's disdain for Luna, had overheard sharp comments, had seen cold, calculated stares that hinted at something darker, and Steffi, torn between her hatred for Sheila and her desperate need for answers, shouted at her to back it up, to prove it, and Sheila, with a triumphant gleam, pulled out a recording, one she had secretly obtained, of Lee's voice in the hospital corridors, confessing to a nurse that she had made sure Luna's little crush on Finn